Hey folks, Jackdaw here. As the new year unfolds, the Dragon Age scene seems rather calm and quiet, with not much to discuss except for a recent quote leak that popped up online in the past few days. Now, given my knack for completely debunking fake leaks in the past and aiming to uncover the genuine details about the game, let's break down into the latest Dragon Age Dreadwolf leak, as it's a journey to dissect, chuckle at, and challenge the claimed revelations. If nothing else, something to talk about in the middle of January 2024. Whether you dismissed this leak completely outright, have some suspicions about certain key elements of it, or are completely clueless about it, I'm going to guide you through it, and together we can fully discuss and dissect this leak. As per usual, it kicked off on Twitter with the account PC Focus, known for their gaming news, dropping the initial bombshell of this leak, asserting that BioWare is currently crafting a Dragon Age Origins remaster alongside new details about Dragon Age Dreadwolf and the next installment of the Mass Effect series. The leak's origin? Of course, 4chan, so brace yourself as we sift through this information, hoping not to sacrifice too many brain cells in the process. And so the narrative unfolds with an anonymous poster on some info on BioWare games, claiming to be an alpha tester for Dragon Age as a BioWare ambassador. A title that, in my opinion and to my knowledge, pertains more to the BioWare Gear Store ambassador, that affiliate influencer marketing role, unrelated to the ongoing Dragon Age project. I digress. This alleged alpha playtester of Dragon Age Dreadwolf delved into the details. And so I'm going to go through them all one by one, immediately giving you my impressions and thoughts on them piece by piece. First up, the alpha tester says that Dreadwolf is currently scheduled to release in Q2 2025, which would basically be any time after summer, halfway into the year. It is in its very advanced stages of production, but there is still a lot of stuff missing, mostly textures. BioWare needs the game to sell dozens of millions and impress gaming audiences, which is why it's taking so long. Okay, so given that BioWare's confirmation that Dragon Age Dreadwolf is in its alpha stages, which was confirmed in like late 2022, a Q2 2025 release date is certainly quite plausible. That is nothing new. And leaks and insider information have already indicated that a mid-2025 release window is certainly expected at this point. And like I've just said, BioWare have already confirmed that the game is in alpha, so stuff like textures and VO is currently missing for a reason, because the game is still being polished up. Regarding the weight and the fact that BioWare needs to sell dozens, well, game director Corin Bush's own dedication to crafting the perfect Dragon Age, as expressed on Dragon Age Day 2023, aligns with this extended development period. It's also worth noting that the game has experienced internal delays, cancellations, and reboots multiple times. However, the assertion that BioWare requires massive sales to impress audiences, especially Electronic Arts, given Anthem and Andromeda's failures, appears more to be a standard expectation rather than a groundbreaking revelation. Let's be real, basically nothing new is being said in this first tidbit. Next up, the game takes place mostly in Tevinter and Arlathan and its surroundings. Weishaupt is your main camp/base this time. So the Tevinter setting for Dragon Age Dreadwolf has been repeatedly affirmed, almost reaching comical levels of confirmation. I've literally memed at this in my own videos so many times, even back in 2019. If the Trespasser DLC did not confirm to you that Dragon Age Dreadwolf is going to be set in Tevinter, I literally do not know what will, but BioWare have came out multiple times and have confirmed that Tevinter will be the main setting of Dragon Age Dreadwolf. And regarding Arlathan and its surroundings, existing concept art has already featured the Arlathan Forest, and Tevinter Nights and the Dragon Age Missing comic has delved into narratives surrounding the Arlathan Forest. So nothing new there. However, the choice of Weishaupt as a central hub is a great nod to the series' roots, echoing the Grey Warden experience of Dragon Age Origins. However, I really don't think that Fortress Weishaupt would be our new player's main camp/base this time around. We have that conflicting gameplay leak from last year hinting at Weishaupt facing several challenges, with hordes of red lyrium infused darkspawn and a red lyrium dragon besieging the HQ in an early mission. We also have dialogue from the 2023 Fadus Calls teaser that hinted at the Grey Warden's fortress absolutely being sieged and the Grey Wardens not wanting to give up. up. We'll talk more on this Grey Warden approach in just a second though. Next up we have that the game plays very similarly to Inquisition with an improved Inquisition UI, and that's nice. I liked Inquisition's UI, so that's pretty good in my opinion. We have had a leaked screenshot of the UI, and I'm of course not going to show that because it is leaked, but it was fairly similar to Inquisition. Next up, in the story, you are a Grey Warden under Weishaupt. You can pick Elven, Human, Dwarf, or Kosif. The main story is about stopping the remaining 2 archdemons, Lucican, Razikel, and Solas. Okay, so this one outlines the story. We are a Weishaupt Grey Warden tasked with confronting 2 archdemons and Solas. Examining this notion in light of the Game Awards 2020 fresco, depicting 2 figures alongside the Dreadwolf who was in the Black City, it certainly sparks speculation about who these 2 figures could be. Could they represent the old gods, blighted into archdemons, or unleashed, unblighted upon Phaedus? It's certainly something that I have discussed before at length. Are these 2 Lovecraftian figures the unblighted old gods? Could they be Lucican and Razikel? And only recently I have begun to analyse them as 2 elven gods. This leak straight up suggests that they are the 2 remaining archdemons, Lucican and Razikel, which it sounds like they're already blighted. Equally, the next hero only being a Grey Warden would be completely reductive and would be disappointing given the amount of new factions already established in comics, Debunking, and brand new marketing material. It feels like BioWare are setting up multiple avenues to play as different factions. And yes, one of them definitely being a Grey Warden or having ties to the Grey Wardens, other ones tying to Antiva, Ravane, Tevinter. There's also been some ties to Navarra and other locations. Now, more on this point is established in the next one. The archdemons will be revealed to be the elven gods. They are trapped in a dragon's body as a punishment by Solas. Like the spirit Harkon was trapped in a dragon's body, they lost their elven bodies and need new ones. Solas hates the Grey Wardens because they are freeing them. Now, it is certainly realistic for the old gods of Tevinter to actually be the elven gods of the Pantheon. The sundering of the elven gods' bodies and their spirit also makes sense since Solas sundered the Elven Empire via creating the Veil. What is it Cole said? The wolf chews its leg off to escape the trap. So that is absolutely realistic and I think is an expectation most of us already have, or at least should have. However, what is completely unrealistic is for the Grey Wardens to free the archdemons. Like what? In Inquisition, the Grey Warden Order seeked to bargain with the Nightmare Demon to open up the Fade and kill the 2 old gods before they rose as archdemons. As the Grey Wardens of Adamant Fortress somehow knew the exact locations of the old gods sleeping in the Fade, there is no scenario a genuine Grey Warden would want to release them, as their duty is to stop the Blight full stop, unless they were corrupted or the Blight had some yield over them. Of course, we don't have any context for that, but yes, that is completely unrealistic to expect. Additionally, if the Grey Wardens of Weishaupt want to free the archdemons, where does our new hero stand in that? Why is our Grey Warden the only one who wants to stop them? Continuing on, we have more about the archdemons. Lucican and Razikel have lower halves of squids and humanoid upper halves. They are the Act 1 and Act 2 main bosses, and Solas is the boss for Act 3. Now this squid humanoid appearance fits in with the fresco depiction of the evil gods on either side. Equally, an old god before being tainted has been described as a Lovecraftian squid Cthulhu-like creature, which has only been depicted in concept art and described by former lead writer David Gader on a stream, as we have not seen this depiction in-game yet. So certainly plausible. However, Solas being the boss for Act 3, it makes sense, but it's not what I expect. I expect a lot more moral ambiguity around him as a final boss. I see us dealing with him after it all, that being on a smaller scale with a greater threat at large. Maybe for some players he is the final boss, but maybe for others like Solivellans, like myself, he isn't going to be the final boss. He might be the final confrontation where we deal with him and the consequences of his actions, but not necessarily a final boss fight. That sounds way too concrete, especially given the moral complexities with Solas and his character and the relationship he has with our Inquisitor. Okay, next point, here we go. By the end of the game, the Fade will be broken, the Blight will be stopped, and everyone will become mages. The Dragon Age will end and the Dreamer's Age will begin. The game will end the franchise's storyline. The end of Dragon Age, literally in both ways, the final story and the final game. If this was even remotely true, Dreadwolf would have to be massive. There's so many loose ends currently unfortunately still to tie. So many stories yet to be told. I suppose ending the game with a blight and an elven god plotline would certainly wrap a lot of things up. And let's just be real, the Dreamer Age just sounds a little silly to me. If the fate is broken, how would everybody become mages? Surely the opposite is true and perhaps all mages would become tranquil? Or at least lose all their magic. If the fate was broken, I feel like all of the raw chaos of it would pour into Thedas. It would be worse than destroying the Veil. The entire fabrics of reality would be changed. I suppose if all of the magic did pour into Thedas, I suppose everybody could be more powerful mages, but I don't really know how that would make everybody mages. Especially dwarves who already have no connection to the Fade. There are lore reasons to make that work if they're connected with the Titans, but I'm not really aiming to justify or explain that one, because it just sounds way too far-fetched. If there is no Fade, how can a dwarf who already has no connection to it suddenly become a mage? Equally, if a human who has no connection to the Fade suddenly become a mage if the Fade is broken, it just doesn't make any sense. But then we have details on a Dragon Age Origins remake codenamed Re-Origins, which sounds absolutely ridiculously stupid in my opinion. Like, what? Dragon Age Re-Origins? Could have made it a bit more inventive, but who's gonna buy that on a shelf? It sounds so stupid. Just call it Dragon Age Origins Remake or Dragon Age Origins Remastered or just Dragon Age Origins. The alpha test described this project being in its early stages of development, and the leaked details suggested that BioWare are taking a Dead Space approach with this one, aiming for a one-to-one remake with a keen focus on enhancing gameplay elements rather than tinkering too much with the original story. Which definitely makes sense if this were remotely true. I think it's definitely something that everybody would want. The fan expectation and the fan demand is also really there for a Dragon Age Origins remaster ever since core Dragon Age team members have said that there is hope for it and perhaps EA will one day do it. However, folks, I don't think that this is it. The main image that the alpha tester has quote leaked is actually stolen fan art from Natalie Stollers over on their own ArtStation account. So yeah, it's really not taken away from the sacred vaults of BioWare, but stolen from a fellow creator in the community, not cool in the slightest, and adds zero amount of credibility to it. Regardless, I do think it's valuable to engage in discussions like these, contemplating the potential direction of next Dragon Age and what BioWare are considering, and which story elements might take center stage in the game. For me, this has just really been a brilliant conversation starter on just the current state of Dragon Age as a whole in 2024. Like, the possibility of Dragon Age Dreadwolf being the final installment in the franchise struck a chord with me. Waiting for a decade since Dragon Age Inquisition has been a significant investment, and concerns arise when considering the potential weight of Dragon Age 5, especially with the next Mass Effect arriving after Dreadwolf, and say that takes about 4-5 years of development. That could easily be arriving in 2028, 2029, or even 2030. Like, let's be real. Let's say Dreadwolf is coming out this year or 2025. The team then goes to work on that project. It's at least going to be 3 to 4 years of development. And so let's say then if Dragon Age 5 requires a minimum of 3 to 4 years of development once the next Mass Effect is out, a release for that project would be around 2032, 2033, or 2034, which would be 8 to 10 years down the road. However, this isn't even a realistic prediction to make, considering the extended development time for Dreadwolf. It could, and it probably absolutely will, take even longer. And equally, we're not even looking at Mass Effect's development. What if that one's also further delayed down the line? Mass Effect 5 is then coming out in 2032 instead of its projected 2028, 2029 release windows. Equally, where could a Dragon Age Origins remaster fall within these timelines of BioWare's upcoming development cycles post Dreadwolf? And so, where do we really get to? We come to the conclusion of Dragon Age Dreadwolf being the final game in the series. And to be honest, that notion doesn't completely dishearten me. It just raises a variety of questions about whether the game can adequately conclude the various plot lines as discussed earlier in the Dragon Age. The scope for Dreadwolf would have to be massive, and I feel like there would only be certain ways of BioWare to do it, that being tying off narratives way too early or just having somewhat unsatisfying conclusions, and like the definitive old gods absolutely being the elven gods, which is actually probably most likely going to be the case anyways, but there's going to have to be a lot of just tying up narratives like Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, filling as many plot holes and scenarios as quick as possible with not the best means. And yet, while that does sound pretty disastrous, do we then truly all want to endure another decade-long wait for the Dragon Age story to conclude? It really is a dilemma, and I am asking this all to you, but just for myself, although my patience has endured the 10-year wait for Dragon Age Dreadwolf, contemplating another 8 to 10 years, to maybe even 15 years if considering the current Dragon Age development timeline, it brings a lot of uncertainty. Like, the prospect of following Dragon Age 4's development from my mid-teens to my mid-20s is vastly different from considering the series' fate in 8 to 10 to 15 years from now, with an unknown trajectory for both the franchise and myself. I've been a Dragon Age fan since I was like, 13, 14, when Dragon Age Origins came out, and properly getting into the series and getting into YouTube with Dragon Age Inquisition in 2014 and creating this channel in 2016. That was all things that I did going to school, college and university, not really having many thoughts in my mind about my future, whereas now I'm at the point where I've graduated, I've done the school work, I've got a job following my degree, and I'm looking towards future prospects. I'm in my mid-20s, I don't know what my 30s and my mid-30s is going to bring, and I can't even begin to think about if I'm going to still be here on YouTube still talking about Dragon Age. Yes, I have done that for the past 10 years as a young adult, but am I going to be doing that in 5, say 10 years from now? I don't know. The wait for Dreadwolf has already been unbearable enough, and yes, while I have patiently waited, I'm a completely different person than when I started getting into this series and started talking about Dragon Age Online. Who am I going to be in the next 7 to 10 years? I'm going to be completely different, and that's going to be okay, but is that person going to like Dragon Age, and is he going to want to commit to YouTube and to following this series again? I don't know. I can only ponder those dilemmas now, and as we approach them closer to the time. Ultimately, I would love a Dragon Age Origins remaster, and I wouldn't mind if Dreadwolf was the final entry in the series just so it can really wrap up. And that just comes from the fact that Dreadwolf has taken so long and nobody expected it, and of course I don't even think the developers expected it to take this long because they didn't expect the delays and EA to cancel their plans and for their projects to absolutely come up ablaze like Anthem and Andromeda. But even then, how do they even feel about the games? Do they want the series to end? The developers who are still there, who have been at the studio for so long? Surely they're getting a bit tired of working on the Dragon Age IP. Another extension to this conversation is, what about BioWare and EA's current movements of all these layoffs and sacking off highly skilled and integral parts of the team who have been at the studio since the bare bones of this IP? Would a Dragon Age 5 even look like a Dragon Age game at this point? Who really knows? But I suppose for now, all I can leave you with is, I'd like to know your thoughts on this fake leak. Of course, the leak is fake. But what thoughts has it stirred for you? While we may regard it as pure BS, there's still something that we can take away from it. Whether it be the meandering wait for Dreadwolf, or the potential plot lines of the game's story with Razikel and Lucican and playing as a Grey Warden, or just the surreal desperation of news from the community as we squeeze every single juice from the so-called leaks from the sweet lemon that is BioWare and Dragon Age Dreadwolf. Please do let me know your own experiences of this wait for Dreadwolf. For your things Dragon Age Dreadwolf, from silly stupid leaks to actual concrete information, you're of course already in the right place as we scour across every single tidbit of this game. I've been Jackdaw, and I should go. Whoa, 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 whoa.